It's unbelievable, but it's true. A former Brazilian congressman, son of a former president, traveling across the United States to convince the world that his father is the victim of political persecution. Sounds exaggerated, but that's exactly what Eduardo Bolsonaro is doing. Part 1. The False Persecution. Eduardo claims that his father, Jair Bolsonaro, is being unfairly persecuted by the Supreme Federal Court. But the truth is different. Bolsonaro is facing charges for attempting coup. With concrete evidence and judicial decisions backed by the Constitution, this is not persecution, it's justice. Part 2. The Judicial Dictatorship Narrative. According to Eduardo, Brazil is living under a judicial dictatorship. He says opponents are silenced and arbitrarily imprisoned. But Brazil remains a full democracy, with freedom of the press, power alternation, and independent institutions. Bolsonaro-aligned lawmakers continue to operate freely. There is no censorship. There is no dictatorship. Part 3. Attacks on the Supreme Court. Eduardo and his allies are trying to convince Donald Trump to sanction Justice Alexandre de Moraes, using an American law against human rights violators. But Moraes' decisions follow due legal process. No international entity has recognized any abuse. The accusation is false and dangerous. Part 4. Invented electoral fraud. Another lie. Eduardo claims that Brazil's electoral system is corrupted, but electronic voting is safe, transparent, and recognized by international observers. There was no fraud in 2022. This narrative only serves to discredit future elections. Part 5. The False Exile. Eduardo presents himself as a political exile. But he is not facing criminal charges, and his passport has not been seized. His stay in the United States is strategic, not forced. Another lie to feed the persecution narrative. The lies of the Bolsonaro clan are not just words. They have consequences. They influence decisions by leaders like Donald Trump and put Brazilian sovereignty at risk. It's time to confront disinformation with facts, because truth must prevail. The worst part of all this is that President Donald Trump is being deceived by Eduardo Bolsonaro himself. He just couldn't double-check all narratives spoken by Eduardo Bolsonaro. The far right has never been less popular than it is today. With every move, with every lie told by Eduardo Bolsonaro and his clan, Brazilians are turning further away from the right. Democracy is growing in Brazil. President Lula has always maintained a history of good relations with the United States. His administration is open to dialogue and negotiation with the U.S. Unlike the toxic influence of the former president's son, who spreads nothing but lies and false narratives. It is essential to expose the Bolsonaro clan and focus on what truly matters. A diplomatic relationship between two sovereign nations that respect each other. Dear President Trump, you have been misled. Eduardo Bolsonaro claims he is being persecuted, and that he cannot exercise his freedom of expression in Brazil, justifying his stay in the United States as a form of political exile. However, the truth is, Eduardo is not facing until now any criminal charges related to the coup attempts. His passport has not been seized. He continues to serve as a federal congressman. He has full freedom to express himself publicly, including on social media and at international events as everyone in Brazil. Eduardo Bolsonaro has been in politics for over 10 years and has only 2 approved legislative projects, neither of which benefit the Brazilian population. One of them created a law that changes rules regarding firearm possession for certain categories, such as municipal guards and prison officers outside of working hours. Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro stirred controversy by wearing a T-shirt featuring Colonel Carlos Alberto Brilhante Ustra, a figure officially recognized by Brazilian courts as a torturer during the military dictatorship. The shirt read, "Ustra Lives," and Bolsonaro shared a photo of himself wearing it on Facebook, captioned, "Ustra lives in the halls of the Chamber of Deputies." And who is the Paulo Figueiredo? Paulo Renato de Oliveira Figueiredo Filho. grandson of former military dictatorship President João Figueiredo. The federal police considers him an operational arm of Eduardo Bolsonaro in the United States, with direct influence over diplomatic and commercial actions against Brazil. It's important to repeat again. Brazil is a democracy. The Brazilian institutions are strong, and the diplomatic relationship between Brazil and the United States spans over 200 years. The United States needs Brazil, and Brazil also rely on many things that come from the U.S. However, matters such as national sovereignty, amnesty for political crimes, and democracy will not be treated as negotiable. They are not on the agenda, as well as they are not considered fundamental interests of the Brazilian state. The Brazilian judiciary is fully independent. The President of Brazil, the head of state since over decades, does not have the authority or power to interfere in judicial decisions, and he respects it. Brazil is just not a dictatorship. It's a very strong democracy and one of the strongest democracies in the world. Nowadays, the Brazilian population stands behind the Supreme Court and supports the President, Lula, which is doing a great work for Brazilian people and Brazilian economy. The Brazilian press is free, and they live with full freedom of expression, totally the opposite to what Eduardo Bolsonaro and Paulo Figueiredo have been spreading. Yes, there was an attempted coup in Brazil, and those responsible must be held accountable and face justice. However, it is important to say, President Trump has been misled and is being deceived by the Bolsonaro clan. Share this video and make it reach Donald Trump. Truth is our best defense against manipulation.